Good morning, everyone. My name is Teresa Crisanti, and I'm with the Illinois Restaurant Association. I'd like to thank you for joining today's webinar and keeping your restaurant health inspection ready with Rebecca Fife, Director of Research at Landmark Pest Management. Today's webinar is being broadcast in English, Spanish, and Mandarin Chinese. To listen in Spanish or Chinese, please use the interpretation button in your toolbar. This webinar is being presented by the Illinois Restaurant Association in partnership with the Cook County Small Business Source. Established to ensure businesses emerge from COVID-19 intact and positioned for growth, the Small Business Source connects owners with expert guidance and support. Services include no-cost business advising, resources, and events that connect small business owners with a community of advisors. For one-on-one business advising, sign up at cookcountysmallbiz.org. Also, before we begin, I'd like everyone attending to know that the Illinois Restaurant Association remains a resource to you. We send regular email updates with what you need to know, and you can sign up for those on our website. For today's webinar, you can use the Q&A button to post your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll do a Q&A session at the end. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Rebecca Fife, Director of Research at Landmark Pest Management. Rebecca, thank you so much for being here today. Please take it away.
Thank you, Teresa. I am thrilled to be here. And Landmark Pest Management is the only pest control firm in the United States to ever win a federal award for innovation. So while we're local, based right here in Cook County, we're objectively ranked as the best pest control firm in the United States, and we handle a lot of the pest control for the James Beard Award-winning chefs and Michelin-starred restaurants in Chicago, and it's my pleasure to support restaurants. I'm also a ServSafe food certified manager. Well, my book is blurred. And when I go into restaurants to look at pest issues, we often see other things that could land a restaurant in hot water if an inspector showed up that day. So we communicate with our restaurant clients about non-pest control related tips to stay health inspection ready as well. So the FDA food code is what governs the standards for restaurants. And there's a 2022 version, but it contains only minor updates from the 2017 version. And Illinois did not go to the trouble of upgrading to the 2022 version. So if you're looking for the complete set of regulations online for restaurants in Illinois, that's the 2017 version. And that's just one of the resources that you're going to receive with the slide deck today. So you're going to receive resources to links to every resource that I mention. And I've also put together a self-auditing tool. So after this presentation, there's going to be another 14 slides with points that you can sit down with your staff or walk through your restaurant to look at all of those inspection criteria to make sure that your facility is inspection ready. And everyone present is going to receive all of those tools after the presentation. So if you're in Evanston or another town outside of Chicago, the minimum inspection standards for your restaurant are the 2017 FDA Food Code plus the Illinois Food Code Part 750. I've linked to both of those in this presentation. But if you're in the city of Chicago, then Chicago has its own standard based on those with some slight differences called the Chicago Food Code. And just to give you an example of one of those slight differences, the FDA food code has a kit that you have to put together for vomit and diarrhea cleanup, and it doesn't contain the word mask. So a mask doesn't need to be in your kit statewide. However, the Chicago food code lists a mask as an essential item. So if you're a business in Chicago, you need to use the Chicago food code to prepare that kit and other items for your inspection. So know your regulatory agency. If you're new in a town and it's outside of Chicago, make sure you ask them if they have a town-specific food code in addition to the FDA 2017 food code, which is the standard statewide. So we're going to focus on the Chicago Food Code for this talk, and the Chicago Food Code is 281 pages, so we're not going to get through it all today. But what we are going to cover is the most common reasons that restaurants fail their health inspections so that you can avoid them. Okay. All right. So there are two kinds of health code violations that can take place when a health inspector visits your restaurant. The lower category is called foundation violations, and they could allow a threat to arise. And this category includes no certified food manager on site, no written employee health policy, food not properly protected from contamination during storage, preparation, display, service, or transportation, or inadequate pest control frequency, qualifications, or documentation. So, for those issues, they don't shut down a restaurant, they return to make sure it's in compliance. So, there's no risk of being shut down for not having those things on a single visit on the first occurrence. However, there is a higher category called priority violations, and these are considered an immediate threat or high risk of causing foodborne illness. And this is considered a failure, not a pass with conditions or a pass with a reinspection. So, a restaurant, if they have any of these issues, such as inadequate storage temperatures, improper food handling practices, improper personal hygiene, rodent or insect infestation, or a lack of hot running water. If these priority violations cannot be corrected immediately while the inspector is at the site, the license may be suspended and the food establishment may be closed right then. Once the violations are corrected, the food establishment operator must sign an affidavit stating the violations have been corrected and schedule a follow-up inspection. Oops. So I want to look at a week in the life of the Chicago Department of Public Health. And we're looking at the week between May 11th and May 18th. And during that week, out of all of the inspections that they performed, 36 restaurants in Chicago failed their health inspections. And it's a really great way to see what the common issues are and what these failures have in common. So we're going to look at 3 case studies. And during that week, 160 restaurants were inspected, 77% of them passed, 22% of them failed. And out of the 36 restaurants that failed, 19 of those had pest issues that were implicated in the failures. So pest issues were cited in 52% of the failures. So let's look at these 3 case studies. So, case study one, when inspectors go out, they write a summary of why the restaurant failed. So, for this restaurant, it was no consumer advisory regarding raw or undercooked food on the menu, improperly stored wiping cloths, dirty prep table, and greasy vent hood. So, what they mean by no consumer advisory regarding raw and undercooked food on the menu, the Chicago Food Code states the license holder shall inform consumers of the significantly increased risk of consuming such foods by way of a disclosure and reminder using brochures, deli case or menu advisories, label statements, tent cards, placards, or other effective written means. What you see here in the top corner of the slide that says consumer advisory is the poster that the city of Chicago furnishes for this purpose. While you could make your own compliant poster that's similar, I would recommend that you just use the one that they provide because then you're sure that it's in compliance. And I've linked to copies of this poster that you can print in this presentation. The restaurant also had improperly stored wiping cloths, and the Chicago Food Code states cloths in use for wiping food spills from tableware and carryout containers shall be maintained dry and used for no other purpose. Cloths in use for wiping counters and other equipment surfaces shall be held between uses in a chemical sanitizer solution, and laundered daily. Cloths in use for wiping surfaces in contact with raw animal foods shall be kept separate from cloths used for other purposes. And one of the other things that they failed their inspection for is a greasy vent hood. The Chicago Food Code states non-food contact surfaces of equipment shall be cleaned at a frequency necessary to preclude accumulation of soil residues. Greasy vent hoods are a big fire hazard in restaurants, as I'm sure you know. So the Chicago Department of Public Health and the Department of Buildings are very strict about making sure that vent hoods are properly cleaned to avoid fire hazard. And let's look at the second of the 3 case studies I have for you. So the violation comment summary for this restaurant was no certified food manager was on site while food was being made. There's no employee health policy and no metal stem thermometer was on site, and several prep coolers were without thermometers, and there were mouse droppings. So, no certified food manager on site while food is being made. The food code states that a certified food manager, which is an 8-hour course, must be present when food is being prepared, held, and served. At risk category 1 restaurants, those are full service restaurants, the food manager also needs to have undergone allergen awareness training, a 1-hour course. Additionally, everyone who touches food must undergo food handling training, a 3-hour course online. And I'm sure that you are already utilizing the Illinois Restaurant Association as a resource to access these classes for your personnel. The food service manager 8-hour course is taught at their facility, and it's always a good idea to have more people on your staff trained and certified than you need to, because every restaurant is required to have one certified food service manager. But if they only have one and that person calls out or doesn't happen to be there when an inspection occurs, then the restaurant cannot pass. So it's better to have more people trained, and you have the IRA as a great resource to schedule the training of your team members. There's also no employee health policy posted at this restaurant, which is another reason they failed. So, in addition to this notice that you see that says employee health notice, which is provided by the city and has to be posted, and I have a link for you to this notice that you can print and bring your restaurant into compliance, you have to have an employee health policy that details how employees are informed and trained to report information about their health, gastrointestinal symptoms, and diseases that are transmittable through food. An employee health notice has to be posted, and then an employee health policy needs to be on file that you can show. In the slide deck that you're going to receive, there are links to both of these. While you could write your own employee health policy, the city has provided a sample that they deem compliant. So I would recommend that you use their policy, or at least use it as a minimum standard when drafting your own. And this restaurant also had no metal stem thermometer, and several prep coolers were without thermometers. The Chicago Food Code states that a metal stem thermometer shall be available on site to check the internal temperatures of time temperature control for safety foods. Each mechanically refrigerated unit shall be provided with a thermometer that is accurate to within 3 degrees. This is one subtle difference from the FDA's code versus Chicago's version of it. Chicago is just a little bit more lenient because the FDA allows only a 2-degree variance for the accuracy of STEM thermometers, while the Chicago Food Code allows 3 degrees. And the third restaurant that we're looking at, the food was at improper holding temperatures, cold holding temperatures. The cooler was at 47 degrees. We know that it needs to be at 40. There's no certified food manager on site while food is being made. There's no advisory on the menu regarding raw or undercooked food, and food handlers were without training certificates, and there was no allergen training. And just to talk about food at improper cold holding temperatures, this is really important. There's a danger zone between 41 and 135 that rapid bacterial growth and the production of toxins happens in that range. So what the Chicago Food Code states is that hot and cold holding shall be maintained at 135 or above, or 141 or below. But I actually think that that is an error in their code. I think that this should say 136 or above, or 40 or below. So maybe they're giving you 1 degree of variance from what's actually required, but that 135 degrees at the top end and 41 at the bottom end are considered the danger zone, so that you should be at least 1 degree above or below those numbers. And another violation for the third restaurant case study is the cooler was at 47 degrees, and the Chicago Food Code states that restaurants must have a refrigerator that is capable of maintaining a temp of 40 degrees Fahrenheit or below, and a freezer capable of maintaining a temperature of 0 degrees Fahrenheit. So those are the reasons that the restaurants that we looked at in our 3 case studies failed. But let's look at a summary of why the rest of the restaurants that failed that week failed their health inspections. So there was no employees must wash hands sign. Another restaurant, or multiple restaurants actually, had mold or microbial growth with black or pink buildup in their ice makers. No covered trash cans in a female bathroom. No self-closing device on a bathroom door. No kit on site for responding to vomit or diarrhea emergencies. One had live cockroaches. Another had live flies on their onions. Another had no pest control logbook. Gaps under doors allowing for pest entry, missing splash guards for hand washing sink next to food prep, dusty vents, no soap at cook line, and employee food handler certificates expired, and food handler prepping food without washing hands. So those were the reasons that accounted for the restaurant failures during the week that we looked at to share with you for this presentation. So let's talk about how to pass your inspection. So here are all of the helpful links that you're going to receive with this slide deck. And each one of these is a link that you can click and be taken to that site or document. So I'll run through these for you. So for restaurants in Chicago, the City of Chicago food rules is sort of the Bible that you have to keep your restaurant in compliance with, and there's a copy of it here. Restaurant and diarrhea cleanup procedure sample plan. You need to have that plan on file and have that kit together. And remember, in the City of Chicago, it has to contain a mask. And you need an employee health policy statement. And there is a sample right here that will bring you into compliance. And you need an allergen notice, which is a sign. You can print it at that link. You need an employee health notice telling employees that they can't be at work with communicable illnesses that's posted on the wall. And there's a link to that sign there that you can print. And you need the consumer advisory about raw or undercooked food. You can print it at that link. You need signs that are posted on the wall telling employees in English, and if you have personnel who primarily speak Spanish, also in Spanish. Those are the employee must wash hands sign that has to be posted in both restrooms as well as hand washing sinks and food preparation areas. You must post a no smoking sign. And in addition to posting the sign notifying employees that they must wash their hands, you have to have the sign telling them the why and how of washing their hands in English and also in Spanish if you have primarily Spanish-speaking personnel. And these are the links to the why and how of washing your hands, which is also required by the city. So you have all of those resources there. If you're opening a new facility and you've never been inspected before, you definitely need to get these all printed and put up at least 1 copy and put them up in the specified areas. And if you have an existing facility, it's also good to audit that. And if you're outside of the City of Chicago, then you can refer directly to the FDA Food Code 2017, the Illinois Food Code Part 750, and the Illinois Department of Public Health produced a vomit and diarrhea cleanup procedure example, which is excellent. And I've provided a link to that there for you. Also, everyone who is in attendance for this webinar can have an on-site consultation with Landmark Pest Management. We will send an expert to your facility. They will produce a detailed private report for you about the pest control efforts and any risks that you need to mitigate on your site. And we're happy to schedule that for you. It's very important. And to talk about the pest control aspect of, what you need to do to keep your facility inspection ready. So contracting a pest control vendor is not enough. If you have pest control, but you still have pests, your pest control is not sufficient and you're not in compliance. So a lot of the restaurants that are cited for pest control are really taken by surprise because they assume that because they have pest control visits, pest control reports, a pest control logbook, that they're in compliance, but that's not the case. So if you see pests, even if you have pest control, you're not in compliance and you really need that on-site consultation. A lot of restaurants have German cockroaches. They are not the cockroaches that infest Chicago's sewer system. And German cockroaches are not native to this area. They don't walk around outdoors. They can't survive our winters. So there's no native population of German cockroaches that live outdoors. So the only way to have cockroaches in a restaurant is they're brought in with people or deliveries. A lot of people who live in multi-unit housing have landlords that don't fully abate their units like they should. So then cockroaches can hitchhike in their backpacks. And if those people are renters, they don't have a lot of control of the pest control in their units. They're sort of at, the discretion of their landlords. So they might be bringing cockroaches to work when they really don't want to do that. And it's the restaurant's responsibility to make sure that a cockroach that hitchhikes in someone's backpack can't establish a breeding population within the restaurant. Or many food deliveries, especially those that come in cardboard, can have German cockroaches that are coming from grocery stores or food production facilities, and they can hitchhike in that way. So German cockroaches are almost always hitchhikers, and they're also what we call optional suffering because restaurants do not have to have them. It's absolutely possible to put a product that is effective and also designed in the interest of human health and safety. It's a product that would be approved for use in, daycare centers, labor and delivery rooms, restaurant kitchens, designed with the health of, children and pets in mind. So we're not talking about like something horrible or dangerous, can put that down and it has residual action. So any German cockroaches that hitchhike to the restaurant or the locker room or the kitchen with food deliveries can't establish breeding populations. So if you have German cockroaches, it really, and you have them for more than 90 days, it really indicates that the pest control vendor that's working there either isn't monitoring enough or, isn't applying products competently or in sufficient quantities, or is using old antiquated products to which newer generations of cockroaches have developed some resistance. So as a science-based firm, Landmark Pest Management tends to be about 10 years ahead in research and development. So there are a lot of pest control vendors still there sort of doing what the pest control industry was doing 10 years ago, and they haven't updated their methods at all. So again, German cockroaches, you shouldn't have them. So if you have them, you can be rid of them in 90 days with more high-tech modern pest control methods, just like you don't want your grandparents' dental care because it wasn't very sophisticated. You don't want your grandparents' pest control either. And that's sort of what a lot of the big guys on TV are still delivering is your grandparents' pest control. Oriental and American cockroaches are different. Those are the kinds that populate the sewer system, and they enter through dry drains that lack water in the P-trap and through uncapped lines and structural problems in the walls. And if a structural modification needs to be made to prevent them from entering, competent pest control efforts can prevent them from being able to reproduce within the restaurant until the necessary repairs are made. We had a restaurant contact us, and they said that there were literally hundreds, if not thousands, of American cockroaches under their floor. And we thought that was amazing. And we ran some cameras under there to look at what the problem was. And there was a horizontal line leading directly to the sewer that was completely broken open. And the only way to access that would have been to basically chisel out the restaurant's floor. Well, they didn't own the building. They said if this was our building, we would, have a plumber going through that floor today to solve this issue. But it wasn't theirs, it was their landlord's. And, we tried to keep that issue at bay, but literally hundreds and hundreds of cockroaches a day could pour out of this open sewer pipe under their floor. So they made the very difficult decision to close and relocate because they couldn't negotiate a structural solution to that with their landlord. So German cockroaches, totally optional. Oriental or American cockroaches are in our sewer system. They enter through our drains. You can keep drains full. You can install a product called Green Drain, which is a waterless trap seal that allows water and debris to go down, but doesn't allow odors or insects to come out. So there are definitely ways to reduce entry by Oriental and American cockroaches from the sewer system. And all of those ways need to be employed, but it's not as simple as eliminating a German cockroach infestation. So mice and rats need to be sealed out structurally, and the indoor population of mice and rats can be fully abated once holes or penetrations through which mice or rats are entering are sealed. So let's look at some of the ways that mice or rats enter. So signs of rats include burrows, live or dead rats, rat droppings, rat gnaw marks or gnaw holes, and sebaceous rub marks, and gnawed garbage carts or evidence of feeding around your dumpster or anywhere. So what you're looking at here is rats chewed their way through a wooden panel on a door. And the black secretion or dark brown secretion that you see around that is called sebum. Rats have very healthy, well moisturized skin, and that is the waxy coating on their skin and fur that keeps their skin in such great condition. And dirt clings to it, and as it accumulates, it creates this discoloration. So we use these sebum trails to do inspections on the exterior envelope of the building to determine how mice and rats are entering. Here's an example of mice having chewed through a door sweep that's not mouse proof. Pretty much any rubber door sweep or brush style door sweep is not a rodent proof door sweep, and mice and rats can chew their way in through it. This is a hole chewed through expanding foam or spray foam. Great stuff is not great for the purpose of keeping mice and rats out. They tend to be able to chew right through it. So rodent proofing should never be performed with expanding spray foam. That's really for drafts or to, insulate, but not to keep rodents out. That's not its purpose, and it doesn't work for that. This is a vent where mice were entering, and the proprietor put vinyl window screen over the vent to try to keep mice out, but mice can chew right through vinyl window screen. So these are just some examples of people trying to keep mice or rats out, but not really knowing the right materials to use. This is a brush style sweep. Again, both mice and rats can chew right through those bristles, and they don't even need to chew through them to enter. They can actually just squeeze under and get a nice little back scratch from those bristles as they go in and out. They can just pop right under them by crawling under the bristles. And we're really lucky that the only vendor that makes completely rodent-proof door sweeps is right here in Chicago. They're the GMT company, and their brand is Excluder, spelled with an X, Xcluder. And you can find them on the web at buyexcluder.com. And what you're looking at here is a rodent-proof door sweep. So it has a bulb gasket. The bulb gasket brushes against the ground as the door opens and closes. But inside that bulb gasket, it's full of a stainless steel mesh. So that's very different from steel wool. So if you take your steel wool, scrubbing pad and leave it next to your sink, what happens over time? Well, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and there's like a drippy pile of rust there because it rusts away. Whether it's, for use in a kitchen where we're actually using it in water, or whether we're taking steel wool and stuffing it in holes on a building, just the moisture in the air can corrode them, and over time they shrink. However, the products made by Excluder are stainless steel mesh. They're not subject to corrosion. They don't shrink or waste away over time. They're very stable, and they have fill fabric that can be used to stuff mouse holes on the exterior or areas where mice are getting in. And they have their line of rodent-proof door sweeps. I have no incentive on earth to recommend their product other than the fact that as a science-based firm, we test the available products through our field trials and innovations, and we have field tested this product against really every major product on the market, and we found it to be really superior. So I want to share it with you and how to access it so that you can get the best restaurant door sweeps to seal mice and rats out of your facility. Small flies are another really common issue in restaurants, and they're almost always coming out of drains. Every now and then they're coming out of like dirty mop heads or mop buckets that are left, or floor mats that aren't picked up routinely and have like kind of a bio slime under them that flies are hatching out of. But where house flies that come in from the outdoors. So if you have, a restaurant where you have a wall that opens for like an indoor outdoor space for dining, a lot of houseflies are going to come in. Those houseflies can be captured in light traps because they're not breeding in your facility. They're coming in from outside. However, small flies, because they're hatching out in the facility, light traps are very ineffective because the number of adults you're catching in light traps compared to the number of larvae that are reaching adulthood and flying around and being an embarrassment and a nuisance, it just can't keep up. It can't make a dent in it. So restaurants that do their own drain care and do it well take the cover off by unscrewing it or just removing it, putting an enzymatic cleaner in there and using a brush, a drain brush that basically looks like a long bottle brush, and feeding it down there to remove those protein solids or fats that are coating the pipe and remaining on the surface of the water, and they don't have flies. But it's really hard to find the time to do that. You're so busy, you're barely getting it done as it is. And a pest control company would need to treat your drains weekly, which would be expensive to have weekly visits just for drain treatment. And that wouldn't even include removing all this bio slime that's in the drains. So what our clients do is they work with a drain vendor, and a good program for drain care is a deep cleaning about twice a year, steam jetting to remove all that material. So you're starting with a clean as a whistle, very clean drain to begin with. And then they come by and apply a monthly gel treatment. Many of our clients who have immaculate drains use a company called Drains Made Simple, and I've included their contact info here. Again, I have no incentive to, recommend this specific company, and there may be other very good drain vendors in our marketplace as well. However, when we see restaurants that have drain cleaning, sometimes it's not really accomplishing what it's supposed to accomplish. And when it's done really, really well, and we inquire who their vendor is, it's often Drains Made Simple. simple. So I know that this company does excellent work. They may be one of many, but this is one who I'm very comfortable recommending to our clients if they're not able to keep their own drains clean. And one sort of tip about drains is if there's ever an odor coming out of your drains, you need a drain cleaning vendor. So drains are not supposed to have any odors because that means that things are accumulating in there and rotting, and that's what provides the harborage for small flies. So the next 14 slides that I have for you are a resource that I created for you to evaluate your own restaurant. So this is something for you to do on your own or with your team. I'm going to just flash forward and show you a couple of these, or just show them so you have an idea of what kind of resource you have here, and you can, act on it and make sure that you're inspection ready. But then I want to move to questions. And the reason that you have to be inspection ready all the time is many of the restaurants that I visit, I let them know when we do the pest inspection that I'm seeing some other things that mean that they're not inspection ready, and that if an inspector showed up today, that they could be cited for. And often what I hear back is, oh, we're not worried about it because we just had our annual inspection a couple months ago. So that's okay. And I say, no, it's not okay. Last year in the city of Chicago, 4,000 restaurants had surprise inspections because they were related to someone making a complaint. So while your annual inspection is scheduled, the response to a complaint inspections are not scheduled. They just walk right in, and you need to be inspection ready at all times. So I've created this checklist where you can actually run through all of the different aspects of your facility and make sure that you are in compliance. So if there was a complaint tomorrow and you were one of the 4,000 restaurants where an inspector, just showed up for a surprise inspection because someone made a complaint about something or other, then you would be ready to pass your inspection. So there's 14 of these slides. It's a checklist. It's an exercise for you to do or do with your team that I created for you to make sure that you're inspection ready. Again, in terms of your pest control, you will receive a free on-site evaluation. You can email for it, you can call for it, and we'll get that scheduled for you, and you'll receive a valuable report to help you make sure that your pest control is inspection ready too. And a lot of people say when they hear that they're doing everything they can, but they have a landlord and they're in a building where they don't have the ability to be pest free or make the structural changes. Well, our inspection team are not just experts in pest control. They are structural experts again, as well. I mean, again, we're the only firm to win a federal award for innovation. And one of the reasons is that our inspectors have experience in plumbing, in masonry. They're structural experts. So they're going to have the descriptions and photos that you need to coordinate with your landlord and let them know, that maybe the issue you're experiencing in your restaurant is on the exterior envelope of the building. And, here's something helpful to let them know they had that issue. A lot of the times they have no idea. They truly appreciate the partnership and collaboration. I'd like to open it up to questions now, if that's okay, Teresa.
Absolutely, Rebecca. Such great information. Thank
Thank you.
you. So I will go ahead and open the chat. So I have one question. Is there a specific season you see an increase of pests?
Yes. So when it's warm out and the windows and the walls of restaurants are open, we are hopping about twice as much as we are when that's not the case, because there are so many flies coming in from the outside. There are mice and rats sometimes coming in because they can climb over those knee walls that, might just have a window up that opens completely up on the top of the wall. But pest control is year round. And, if the cockroach populations are, at 70% in the winter and 100% in the summer, 70% is pretty bad too. So even though we do see an increase in a number of pest populations in the summertime, they're still, really severe in the winter as well. For mice, a lot of times we'll see an influx of mouse entry in the fall when outdoor temperatures start to get cold and they want to find a way in. And there are other pests that are not seasonally affected, but they're weather affected. So, for instance, when we had our heat waves over the summer, there were insects that are trying to escape the heat outdoors, like roly-polies and millipedes that came in by the hundreds to restaurants because they couldn't endure the heat outside. They also do the same thing when it rains a lot and there are a lot of floodwaters. And there's a big increase of rats coming into restaurants through the plumbing, whether they exit through a wall void, a ceiling void, when the water levels in Chicago's sewer system rise, because Chicago's sewer system that drains the water as well as the storm sewers are one. In many cities, those are separate systems, but in Chicago, they're the same system. And so when the water level rises, the rats go to high ground. And unfortunately, that means in many of Chicago's restaurants.
Oh, wow. So yeah, all year round, keep up with your pest control. And that's a great segue to our next question. Um, what about water beetles from Chicago sewer system? We see them a couple times a year. They're very few and slow moving.
Yeah, so water bugs, people have that term for two different species of cockroaches. It usually means the American cockroaches, which is the biggest cockroach found in Illinois. People also use it to mean the Oriental cockroach, which is a beautiful cockroach, very black and shiny. Sorry, I'm a real nerd. I think cockroaches are beautiful. I just outed my nerdiness there. I'll try to keep it under wraps. But that's what people call water bugs. And they are very susceptible also to rises in the level of water in the sewer. So some restaurants, unfortunately, have them pouring in through the sewer system all the time, and others, they only come in a couple of times a year, generally following a really big rain or any kind of sewer construction that takes place in the vicinity of the restaurant will drive those water bugs, or more specifically, American and Oriental cockroaches, up through the sewer system. Having a product called Green Drain or any brand of waterless trap seal will help. Again, it allows particles to go out, water to drain out, but doesn't allow vapors and insects to come in. Or just adding a bucket of water to each P-trap every week to keep those P-traps full forms a water barrier that the cockroaches tend not to cross. So both of those strategies can help reduce that, but it's also important to have, if this happens, frequently at a facility, to have liquid residual products waiting for them, because while we might not be able to stop all of the ones that can come in, we can certainly stop them from being able to breed and reproduce in the facility and set up a breeding population.
Great, thank you so much.
Mhm.
Another question, is it possible to speak on the number of PCO visits? The food code says 1 time a year, however, the PCO says 3 or more. Is this a sale tactic or preventative measure?
So the City of Chicago Food Code's minimum requirement is twice a year, I believe. And for instance, Landmark Pest Management, we don't have restaurant clients that receive service less frequently than monthly. So each pest control company is going to have their rule about what the frequency is for their clients. Landmark Pest Management has the highest health inspection passage rate for its restaurant clients of any pest control firm servicing Northern Illinois. And one of the reasons is we get our eyes on the facility every month. We have monitoring devices. We know that you have a problem before you do. Our clients don't really need to ask us for things. We sort of tell them, we found this, we're addressing it in this way, and we're extremely proactive. So a lot of restaurants have contacted us asking if they can have quarterly service, and it's not something we provide because our reputation is on the line too. When you pass, we pass. If you fail, we fail. So we're very protective of our restaurant clients by insisting on monthly service. Hope that helps.
And would you say, it's best to stay preventative maintenance and wait till there's a problem to
Oh,
hire?
Absolutely. Yes. I mean, if we have a client that's like a liquor store or something, they're not really a restaurant, we're happy to put them on quarterly service. That's no problem. But for, level one restaurants, they're on monthly service and they really need to be.
Someone asked what to do about bigger flies, not fruit flies. We have French doors we open in the warmer months. We even treat our own in nearby dumpsters, but still get flies. Do we just use those sticky fly ribbons, or is there something better you recommend?
That's a great question. So if you are come in to your restaurant because the doors are opened. You mentioned that you treat the nearby dumpsters. I'm wondering what you treat them with. There are some really great products that can be applied to dumpsters like PT Alpine Fly Bait that we apply to all of our restaurant clients' dumpsters, back doors. Sometimes if they have outdoor seating and a window that's open, like you're describing that you have, and there's landing spots that we see near the ledge. We're also going to apply fly baits in all of those landing areas. We also work with our clients to sometimes relocate their dumpsters and trash handling because those smells, of course, invite the flies into the restaurant. And then we're going to look at the spectrums of your lighting. So certain lighting options that have, certain ranges of UV are very appealing to houseflies and are going to direct them into the restaurant. So sometimes replacing lighting with frequencies that appeal less to flies is a really good way to stop luring them in. And if you put up any fly lights, we're going to position them very expertly. We do not think that restaurants should buy their own fly lights online and put them up. The reason is they're almost always put up wrong with that UV shining toward areas where they're drawing flies in. So we're going to position your fly lights so that they only catch the flies that are in and they're not attracting any additional flies in with that UV attractant. So I hope that's helpful for you. And in terms of, ribbons for flies, probably fly lights and fly baits and, UV frequency are more important, but you're welcome to put up sticky ribbons. Just certainly if a health inspector gives you one of those surprise visits and comes in the front door and says, I'm here for an inspection, you need to run around and throw all of those away before you walk that inspector around your facility. Hope that's helpful.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Mhm.
We are a restaurant underground level and we're having issues with rats due to the train station being connected. How can restaurants prevent this, or what are the available resources in this case?
That is an excellent question. So there's always a path that the rats are taking when they're getting in. So having someone who has expertise in dealing with rats as well as the structural knowledge to perform what we call a next level structural inspection. Rats can exit broken sewer pipes and burrow blind, like without even being able to see, through dirt 15 feet, walking on the outside of buried pipes and coming in through penetrations where the slab or the horizontal foundation wall is crumbling that, has a pipe penetrating through it, but it's crumbling around where the pipe is, where the outlet where the pipe penetrates was cut too large. So we find all of these underground issues that are totally other than obvious. We, I don't know if there's any of our, clients on this call where we've solved really complex rat issues, but we open walls at restaurants. We find the issues where rats are getting in. So you have to find those areas, and then it has to be sealed with rat-proof techniques. So for instance, if we find rats coming through a slab, you can't just pour cement because rats can swim right through wet cement and the work that you do, won't accomplish anything. So it comes to knowing rat proofing techniques of layering an expanded steel metal into the wet cement so that it's protected and sealed while it dries. So the answer is that you have to find where they're entering. It may require, fiber optic cameras being fed into walls. It may require putting cameras through plumbing pipes to find where a break, in some of the city's plumbing is like 100-year-old plumbing. So we work with very sophisticated plumbers to find the breaks, to seal the penetrations in slabs and foundation walls, and to solve the hardest to solve rat issues. So I think that your issue is, probably solvable. It's just what do you need to spend to get it solved to correct the infrastructure issue that's allowing it to happen?
Right. Well, I had no idea they can go through wet cement.
Mhm.
You're truly indestructible. Regarding water beetles and American roaches, we see them come up from our sump pump hole, which is bigger. Does the waterless trap seal or green drain work in a large hole like that?
So it doesn't. So what you need for your sump pump is your pest control treatment frequency should temporarily increase until the issue is solved. And on every pest control visit, your sump pump should be flanked with basically 2 rings of glue boards, or we have this like 1.5 foot wide cockroach paper that we can put around. And then we use a flushing agent that's applied to the sides of the sump pump to eliminate that infestation. And then once it's eliminated, it probably will just need monthly maintenance. So you might need more frequent pest control for about 90 days, maybe weekly in the beginning, and then once every 2 weeks, then you can probably move back to your monthly visits. And you can also adjust the water level in some sump pumps and ejector pits. So if you look into your ejector pit or your sump pump, there's a horizontal line that is leading out to the sewer. And there is probably a float that you can actually manually adjust to bring the water level in the sump pump or ejector pit up to cover that horizontal line to create a water barrier. And that can be very helpful. But in a lot of situations, many restaurant clients, their grease pits are out at the sidewalk level and there's no water in there, and the horizontals are not covered by water. And in that case, we just have to treat those on every visit to keep the walls completely clean. So we have pest control clients who, when they brought us in, their facilities were really severely infested. And, now we do a dusting of a product on the walls of those ejector pits, sump pumps, or grease traps that are out at the street covered with sewer caps. And now they're pest free and there's no cockroaches in those. So it needs to be worked on in those ways. But yes, it can totally be solved.
Perfect. So what is the best time to have pest management come treat my restaurant? Would we have to close our restaurant?
So that's a really great question. So all of the most cutting edge, modern, expensive products are designed to be used while a restaurant is in operation. So you should be able to have pest control at any time. Occasionally, we'll need to do something that's, more advanced, more extreme, requires us to open all the or some of the ceiling tiles to put things like cockroach birth control once every 90 days when we take on a new client and they're in a real crisis situation and we're, sort of bringing out the big guns. Then we'll like to come early and work when they're closed. But your routine pest control visits should all be able to take place during normal operations. And, the days of pest control vendors coming overnight is really, should be extinct now with the modern products that are on the market that don't have VOCs, that don't off gas, that are, bait gel formulations and insect growth regulators that are like non-toxic birth control type formulations, and even liquid residual products that are in a heavy droplet that are microencapsulated that fall straight down and that they don't have VOCs or off gas because the only thing that evaporates from them is plain water, and then the active ingredient is microencapsulated. So, depending on the sophistication of your provider and the quality of products that they're using, that is really what determines when you need to have service. But for our service, we can always perform it during normal operations.
And the treatments are safe.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Does Landmark Pest Management install excluder door sweeps if that is something that we need in our restaurant?
We do. We install excluder door sweeps. You can also obtain them directly through the excluder company, buyexcluder.com, and they have installation videos on their website that you can watch to learn how to install them. But our company does come out and measure for them, custom cut them, and install them if that's not something that you're comfortable doing in-house.
Yeah. And then last question, can you offer advice on practices that restaurant staff can implement to complement your pest control efforts?
Yes, absolutely. So one of the things that they can do is keep the baseboards exposed so that we can treat properly. A lot of restaurants, like in mop closets, things will really build up. There's like funky smells in there, and it's really hard to get in there and treat the areas that we need to treat to prevent infestation. So by not letting things rest against baseboards, especially in wet areas, that really, really helps. Trying to keep your floors dry with floor fans and the mats, the anti-slip mats and the, pressure mats that are cushy for the workers to stand on. Those really need to be very thoroughly cleaned. So what we find in many restaurants is that those mats are not cleaned, they're smelly, and they're accumulating like a biosolid that small flies start to hatch from. So doing those internal cleaning operations, and if your team isn't able to keep the drains clean, then engaging a vendor like Drains Made Simple to keep the drains immaculate really also helps to battle small flies. So those are really the ways that the restaurant operations can support. But being kind of a next level firm, we actually evaluate that, and we email general managers all the time saying, hey, we noticed that some mortar came out, or some grout, I'm sorry, came out between these floor tiles in this area. It's accumulating water. What's the plan to get your tiles repaired so there's not this area with water pooling? And in the meantime, are you able to instruct your team to, on a nightly basis, put a floor fan there so that these, furrows in the grout can dry completely overnight, because we're noticing this is starting to be a small fly harborage. So just having that quality of inspection and that quality of communication, and then just being responsive to those recommendations, which all of our clients are incredibly responsive. We don't have any issue with restaurants not really wanting to, fix those issues when it's pointed out to them. They might not figure it out. A lot of people have the mythology that restaurants just have pests. So if it's not pointed out to them, they might just think it's something they have to live with. But then once it's pointed out, we have an incredibly high level of, engagement and partnership to get those issues solved.
Thank you so much, Rebecca.
My
Those
pleasure.
are all of our questions for today. So we're at the end of our time. I'd like to thank you all for attending. Thank you, Rebecca Fife, Director of Research, Landmark Pest Management. I'd also like to thank the Cook County Small Business Source for their continued efforts to provide resources, information, and business advising to small businesses to help with their recovery. Following the conclusion of this webinar, attendees will receive an email with links to the webinar recording as well as the presentation. Thank you all so much. Thanks, Rebecca, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay.